back off. That is the message to Donald Trump from the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. In a fiery speech, Pritzker slamming Trump's unprecedented crackdown on crime, as Trump calls it, and Trump's threats to send the National Guard to Chicago.
This is not about fighting crime. This is about Donald Trump searching for any justification to deploy the military in a blue city, in a blue state, to try and intimidate his political rivals. There is no emergency in Chicago that calls for armed military intervention. There is no insurrection. There is no insurrection. Mr. President, do not come to Chicago. You are neither wanted here nor needed here.
Okay, well, that's pretty loud and clear. Pritzker doesn't want the National Guard in Chicago. Well, that used to be enough to not get the National Guard sent to your city, but not anymore. Trump has been giving himself more powers to expand his use of force across the country. And right now, he has set his sights on Chicago.
I made the statement that next should be Chicago because, as you all know, Chicago is a killing field right now. And they don't acknowledge it. And they say, we don't need them, freedom, freedom. I mean, I see Pritzker saying, we don't want them. In the meantime, his city is being shot to hell. And they do that politically. And they probably do want it.
Trump railing against the crime in Chicago, but just a quick, basic fact check of the situation. Chicago is a city that has seen a substantial decline in the number of homicides, something that Pritzker and the mayor of Chicago have pointed out.
13 of the top 20 cities in homicide rate have Republican governors. None of these cities is Chicago.
Chicago is not in the top 25 of the most dangerous cities in the United States. And these facts are indisputable and widely acknowledged.
Another city seeing a decline in violent crime as of late is Baltimore. Yet Baltimore is also on Trump's radar.
Baltimore is a horrible, horrible deathbed. It's a deathbed.
He calls Baltimore a deathbed. And yet in the same breath, Trump then went on to tell a story about, this is an incredible story because he says that he met the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, who, by the way, infamously grew up in Baltimore, now the governor of Maryland. So he meets Wes Moore at a football game, an Army-Navy game, and this is what Trump says happens.
He came over to me, he hugged me, shook my hand. You were there. He said, sir, you're the greatest president of my lifetime.
Maybe if he'd gone a little shy of greatest, if he'd retold the story of he said you're doing a good job or something that might be more believable. But here's the thing. That's kind of hard to swallow. And a short time ago, Governor Moore responded to Trump's claims.
I'm a person who takes my integrity very seriously. And I spent the past 6 months before that election campaigning as to why I did not think that he should be the next president of the United States. So when I say that that conversation never happened, that imaginary conversation never happened, I mean that conversation never happened.
Moore, Pritzker, Gavin Newsom, governor of California, all saying no to Trump on using the military in American cities. But their words don't seem to matter.
What is increasingly becoming self-evident to anyone with eyes wide open and any level of objectivity, a private army for Donald Trump, owing an oath only to him, not the Constitution of the United States.
So Newsom says that. What's interesting is that is a claim that Trump does not seem to be shying away from at all.
I'm chief law enforcement officer, believe it or not. I don't like to go around saying that, but I am. That's the position.
It's an interesting thing to say, right? He's not talking about commander-in-chief, which isn't something one would usually just be out talking about as president anyway, but he's phrasing it chief law enforcement officer. Jeff Zeleny is out front live outside the White House, beginning our coverage this evening. And Jeff, there are signs today from Trump that he plans to take this law enforcement takeover, right, in certain Democratic cities even further.
Well, the president signed a series of executive orders, Aaron, and one of them was designed to do just that. He's instructing his defense secretary to create specialized units, as he described them, inside the National Guard for rapid nationwide deployment in areas where law and order is needed. Of course, not many specifics on that. But look, the National Guard is used for emergencies. And the question here is this an emergency? But you would be mistaken if you thought that President Trump was concerned by any of this Democratic pushback. In fact, this is clearly one of the strategies at play here. Here we are nearing the end of August, and President Trump has spent the lion's share of this month at least talking about domestic matters, making the issue of law and order, of crime and justice. And he has quite literally turned this into a new and nationwide issue. Yes, crime existed before, but he is proudly wearing that hat as the law enforcement commander in chief. That is what he wants to be seen as, wants to be known as. So he was bragging and crowing about the what he says are changes in the Washington D.C. Crime statistics ever since he federalized the police. He was giving homicide statistics from the Oval Office. It's something we've really not seen before at all. But yes, he is going to at least think about discussing sending the National Guard to other cities. But there are limitations to what the National Guard can do in Baltimore. In Chicago, yes, they can protect federal buildings, they can protect federal assets, but they cannot serve as law enforcement officers. However, is this going to be a legal challenge? It certainly seemed that way from Governor Pritzker. But again, you'd be wrong if you think President Trump is bothered by any of the criticism. Aaron?
Yeah. Jeff Zeleny, thank you very much. And of course, you start one place and you end in another. People don't push back. Everyone is here with me now. So, Lulu, you have obviously spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. You were at Union Station today. National Guard's there, right? So they're stationed. And, you know, I mean, I remember seeing them in L.A. A lot of them are young guys. They're doing their jobs, right? So it's not about individuals. This is about the fact that they're just there in large numbers now. And you took some pictures that you have shared with us. So these are Lulu's pictures from today. What was it like? What up to you there?
You know, it's strange right now in D.C. because it feels like a city that's being strangled. Right now, the District of Columbia, which is home to, let me remind you, 700,000 people, more than the population of 2 states, has the highest unemployment rate in the country because of what has happened with the federal workforce. Restaurant reservations are down some 30% in some places. You can't get deliveries because so much of the enforcement has targeted delivery drivers that they are afraid to come out. The Latino community is afraid. And every conversation I have with people in DC, they all say that it feels like an occupation. This is not a city that is welcoming what is happening. It is a city that is afraid of what is happening because it is very unusual in America to see armed military on the streets of an American city. And this isn't just any American city. This is the capital of this country. And so what does it say when you have federal forces on the streets of our capital city? You know, Democrats say it is a power grab. Donald Trump says it's about crime, but he wants to export it to other cities. What I can tell you from living in DC is that this is a very, very uncomfortable and people feel dangerous time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, as you say, sometimes when you see law enforcement everywhere and yet you don't feel safe, the true awkwardness of that moment that you're talking about. I mean, Governor, what's your reaction to what Lulu is saying?
Well, we should remember that Donald Trump campaigned on aggressively and boldly tackling the decay and danger that he saw in Americans' major cities. And so this is a fulfillment of a campaign promise. I don't think he got into the details of exactly how he was going to do that, but directionally, that's what he said. Number two, how much of an emergency do you need after years and decades of the high crime and danger in these cities without any real sustained period of turning it around? Yes, crime's down a little compared to a high base from a couple of years ago, but still in our major cities across this country, public safety and not backing law enforcement is a major concern. And President Trump has boldly, maybe over the legal boundaries, we'll see, but boldly gone in to try a case study in DC. And by the way, the early results for the first 2 weeks per the DC police, it's working. There's a significant reduction in significant crime in DC since this started.
Well, I know, Lulu, they were saying there had been a stretch here of, what was it, 2 weeks or something? There was a longer stretch back in March where there hadn't been a homicide.
I mean, what you're hearing from the wards where there is a lot of crime, what you're hearing from those wards is that the criminals are staying home because they're not going to go out in the streets, or sure. There's not going to be a murder right now because they know that there's military out on the streets. But is this really a long-term solution to the crime problems in our cities? Is the federal government going to take over every city in America? And also, what does it mean when these people are beholden to this president and he's only targeting blue cities? I mean, as some of these Democratic governors have pointed out, a lot of the cities are in red states. Why aren't they being sent there?